Hi guys, I'm Sam from the Unity of Life and welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, if you're not new here, but I'm just going to explain anyway, what we've been doing is, as well as obviously we've been talking about animals as well, because obviously we are quite united, and animals are linked to us and we all share this planet, so we should be respectful to animals as well as humans. But for the purposes of this video, what we've been doing is we started looking at Formula 1 just as a sport, because we are looking at and the fact that this sport, obviously it's not very diverse. There's not a lot of diversity in it at all. Most of the drivers are white male, so we looked at maybe why that might be. So we went back and we had a look at the history. And then after we had a look at the history, what we then did was we looked at the sport as it is today, using the Netflix documentary Season Drive to Survive. And we looked at all 30 episodes throughout Season 1 to Season 3. And then we've explored what we did motorsports. Some had links into Formula 1 and others didn't, because they were like American and they had links in like NASCAR and the Indy sort of racing. So the woman that we looked at was Susie Wolff, we looked at Claire Williams, we looked at Pat Moss, we looked at Cheryl Lee Glass, and we also looked at Melissa Len, I can't remember her surname now. And we've also obviously mentioned Tina Northfield as well. If there's any other females that you want me to discuss or you would like to know more about, drop their name in the comments section below. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on any of these videos, and if you wanted to have a little bit of debate on your thoughts on the lack of diversity, but please keep it civil. I mean, it'd be great, but let's not be nasty with one another, because that is not what this channel is all about. So we're going to now look at purely just racism in general, and this is going to be the first video in that, and we're looking at, well, I say racism in general, well, it's racism sort of in Formula 1, because it does happen. So before we get too much into it, we mentioned that you're a fan of Formula 1, you're seeing that there was an incident in the British Grand Prix of the 2021 season between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. So what had happened was that both cars Max was obviously being very aggressive, and in turn so was Lewis. Lewis needed to close the gap up with the points for the World Championship, and Mercedes needed to close the gap on Red Bull for the Constructors' Championship. And what had happened was that there was a little bit of a collision, because the two cars had collided in a way, and Max had been thrown at, I think it was like 31 G force into the barrier, and was out of the race. This was within the first lap. Lewis, so the race was red flagged. The race was stopped for like, I think it was like 45 minutes. Lewis was given a 10-second penalty, and obviously there's been debates whether or not that was fair or not, because of the professional drivers, they said that it was just a racing incident. We're not going to dwell too much on it, because the important thing is Max was fine. He went to the hospital, he had he got checked out and everything, which is just what they do. It's just a normal procedure that they do, because obviously it's a very dangerous sport, and he had a few bruises. That was all. I think his ego was quite bruised as well, but other than that, physically and mentally, he was absolutely fine. He got out from the wreckage, he walked away at the end of the day with his life, and no serious injuries, which is all you can ask for when something as horrible as that does happen. However, what was uncalled for and unnecessary was that people were then attacking and being rather racist to Lewis. So the thing that was good about what happened with this was the fact that Formula 1, Mercedes, and some drivers like Lando Norris, Daniel Ricciardo, just to name a few, came out and said that they don't tolerate racism in their sport, and if you were one of the people that sent these racist, horrible comments and attacked Lewis, then you weren't a fan of that sport at all. So this is what this issue is all about, because obviously Lewis has And obviously he's talked about in the past how he's faced racism before, especially within the sport. Not saying it's come from other drivers or other teams, it was fans, okay? It all seems to come from the fans. From what he has said, like, some people came and they put these like curly head wigs on and they painted their faces, and they said that they were his family members, which, I think they were just jealous because they just wished that they were related to such a kind-hearted man, okay? Because the thing that really rattled me the most about all of this is there's just no need for racism whatsoever, you know? And I just felt so bad for Lewis when I found out about this, because he's such a kind-hearted man, okay? He literally will put everybody else's needs before his own. You know, he's absolutely fantastic in the way that he does this. I mean, okay, he has done some very controversial things in the past, because he's human. He makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect, you know. And yeah, I mean, like I said, he literally puts everybody before himself. Every message he puts, like, especially after the incident, the first thing he asked was, "Is Max okay?" And then when he went on social media to talk about it, there was some pictures of his win, because Lewis did go on to win the race. He then also said that he was glad that Max was okay. Yet Max threw this into his face and said that, you know, I was still in the hospital and the way that you were celebrating was very disrespectful and very unsportsmanlike. Not the fact that if the shoe was on the other foot, then Max obviously would be milking it and he would be celebrating the win as well, even if Lewis was in hospital. But it seems that Lewis at this point in time wasn't even aware that Max was actually still in the hospital. But the point is, when he went onto social media, the first thing he said before he even mentioned the rest of the race and the win was that he was really glad that Max was okay. And, you know, he's always putting positivity, like, on his social media. He's always trying to brighten his fans' days up, whether it's something that he said or he just shares cute little moments of his dog Roscoe, who's absolutely adorable, by the way. You know, and he's trying to help the planet as well. Like, he's trying to use the success and the influence that he has to do good. So he's trying to get more people of colour into Formula One. He's trying to understand why they're not having the best of educations, why they're not getting into decent jobs like teaching. What is the issue here? And he's trying to combat that. He's trying to fight it. He's trying to resolve it so that the world's going to be a better place for future generations, especially for people of colour. And not only that, he's a huge animal lover and he's trying to help the planet as well. So, you know, for somebody as nice and as kind as him to just be brutally attacked in the way that he did was obviously absolutely disgusting, and there's absolutely no need for it. Especially if, like, you're British, you should be really proud of the achievements that he has, because at the end of the day, he is representing Britain. He's representing everybody in Britain. He's representing that country. And I know he's not, like, the only athlete to do so, because I know the Olympics are starting or have started and all that, and obviously they've got some quite wonderful athletes as well. But anyway, we're going to go back to the racism, like, that's in this Formula One video. So obviously we are all aware of what has happened in 2020. We had the coronavirus pandemic happen, and then the whole world was obviously affected with the way that like, this was a time that let's just say that just the pandemic happened. This was certainly a time in which we as human beings, as the same species, should have been coming together, regardless of our gender, regardless of our race, regardless of our sexuality, regardless of our gender identification, or the way that we identify with ourselves, or the way that we dress, or the way that we look. Regardless of all of this, we are still human beings. We still live on this planet, and this virus, this coronavirus, this pandemic was happening all over the world, and it was killing thousands, if not millions, of people that live on this planet. This virus did not give a crap who you were, what colour your skin was, your sexuality. None of that came into consideration. That virus, if you got it, was going to kill you. And this was the time we all should have really been coming together to help combat and help fight against this virus. And I'm not here to talk about the political the political aspect of it and what some countries have done versus what other countries haven't done and what they could have done, because yes, I have my own opinions on that, and so do you, and this is not what this video is about. We're not getting into that, but instead what 2020 also highlighted was that we were further apart than ever before. And what I mean by this was obviously the horrible, horrific, brutal death of George Floyd in America. His life was literally taken away from him because of an accusation of whether or not money that he had used, whether or not to his knowledge or not, to pay for something in a shop was for forgery or not. He might have not even, let's say for argument's sake, it was a forgery. He may not have even been aware that that note was a forgery. And yeah, I've seen a lot of things that have we're over a year after his death, and people are still attacking him because apparently he had his criminal records and he was this criminal, and yes, he didn't deserve to die in the way that he did, but we shouldn't be honouring him because he was nothing but a criminal. And you know, that at the end of the day is horrible for people to say, and it literally doesn't matter whether or not he was a criminal or not, okay? At the end of the day, he was a black man that was singled out, he was targeted by white police officers, and he was brutally murdered because of the colour of his skin. Because, you know, he even told them he couldn't breathe, and they still didn't give up. If you think kneeling on the back of somebody's neck is okay, and that's how you're going to restrain them, then think again. Because he crushed his windpipe, okay? And that is what killed him. So not only has somebody lost their partner and their child, because he was somebody's child, and he did have a partner, he also left behind a very young daughter who has been robbed the opportunity to even know her father because of some idiotic, flippin' white supremacist police officer who has now gladly been jailed and is serving time, even though that it took an awful long time to get to that result. And obviously, because of this event shocked the whole world, this is the moment that obviously the Black Lives Matter movement was born. Because people, especially people of colour who lived in America, they're obviously very fed up and very sick of the injustice and the way that they are being treated because of the colour of their skin. And I, for one, obviously not being affected by racism, because as you can see, I am white, but it saddens me that we are living in the 21st century and yet we're still judging people on something like a biological basis that they have absolutely no control over. Like I said in one of my other videos, it's actually us white people who are the freaks, okay? Our skin changes colour. When we're in, like, the winter, we look like corpses, and in the summer, we either look like flaming lobsters, or our skin becomes darker to protect ourselves from the sun, and it becomes tanned. And, you know, what the hell? Like I said, we're the ones, the freaks, you know, of the mutation. You know, the colour of your white skin is lack of pigmentation in your skin, right? That is a mutation, right? The very early human beings, they were black. And do you know why they were black? Because they were living in, like Africa, where Africa is now. And then when the plates and the countries all split off, and people obviously got stranded on these plates, and the sun wasn't as hot as where they'd first come from, there was no need for that extra pigmentation, and it went away, and white people were born. So, you know, we're the mutation, we're the freaks, we're the secondary ones, we're the ones that should be classed as abnormal, not the black ones, the people who are black, sorry, because, like I said, at the end of the day, you know, that's just how it happened, and nobody is better than anybody else on this planet. And considering the events that we went through and we're still going through, we should actually be standing together, and we shouldn't be divided. So obviously, like I said, as we all know, that F1, it is a sport that's known for its equality, and for years it's been quite a white male dominant sport, and while it's still kind of a male dominant sport, not all the drivers are white. However, the number of white drivers do outnumber the non-white drivers. So as I've mentioned already in previous videos, that Lewis Hamilton, he is the only black driver in Formula 1, and thus was the first when he made his debut back in 2007. There had been no black drivers before him, and they couldn't read there is no other black drivers apart from him. And that's obviously what he's trying to change. Like I mentioned in like the last video, he did I think it's called Hamilton's Commission, and he did collected a lot of data and a lot of research. And on the 13th of July 2021, he released that information to the world to try and help businesses take stock of basically who they employ, and trying to make it equal, so they had equal white and equal black people of colour, and trying to have some diversity in things like sports as well. But it wasn't just in F1. So the pandemic of 2020 pushed back the Formula 1 season, as we've already discussed, and by the point that the season could go ahead, the Black Lives Matter movement had already been established and was everywhere you looked now, and it was even in Formula 1, which is quite rightly so. It should have been like completely in your face, because it is a matter that's not going to go away. I remember reading that, I think it was a footballer of colour, and he said how many people are still going to say Black Lives Matter when it's no longer the in thing to do so, because obviously these people have been fighting this fight for hundreds of years. And it's ridiculous that not much has changed in that period of time, because we're meant to evolve. We're meant to become better people, basically, and suddenly we don't seem to be. So drivers they take the knee, and a lot were wearing obviously t-shirts that stated "End racism." Like I said in the last video, I briefly touched on that, and I've also briefly touched on Mercedes. So this is, as you may or may not know, but if you've been watching this channel or you are a fan of Formula 1, you will know that Mercedes is actually the team in which Lewis drives for, and they decided to make some changes. So they painted their once silver cars black, and the suits in which the drivers wore also went from white to black. And this obviously the car that was going into 2020 was originally going to be silver when they did the testing, but then they changed it in black, and it's still black for the 2021 season. And that was as a sign of them standing up against racism, right? So over the past year, Lewis has stood up and he's spoken about the racial injustice in and out of Formula 1. Because it's obviously not just something that's isolated in Formula 1, it's literally everywhere. And he's spoken about his own experiences with racism that he's had to face in his entire life, which, like I said at the beginning of the video, is absolutely sad. It's absolutely atrocious that this is happening. Yes, unfortunately students do get bullied for all sorts of reasons, but and even as adults you still get bullied, but to be picked on because of what colour your skin is just outrageous, and it's absolutely disgusting. It is bad enough being singled out and being tormented because of your gender, never mind the colour of your skin or your sexuality. I can't imagine what it must be like if you are a black lesbian woman, because you might get abused from all sides. You might get abused from homophobes, racists, and sexist people as well, which obviously is absolutely disgusting, and it isn't great. That's what we need in Formula 1. We need a black lesbian woman, and she needs to win the championship so she can stick one finger up at all these racist idiots in the world. That would be fantastic. So, however, near the end of the racing season, Lewis felt as if some of the other drivers were maybe not doing as much as they could to help this movement. That's obviously very close to his heart. He was going to the head of the FIA, who was obviously in charge of Formula 1, and was going to demand a change, as he believed nobody else would. Nobody else was going to go and demand this change. So Lewis is one of the most successful drivers in Formula 1 history. That just should not even be debated. He is now only the second driver to win 7 world championships to date, and he's won the most races. And in fact, he's trying at the moment to get his 8th world championship. Depending on when you watch this, if you're watching this in 2022, then that might have already happened. But just this is being recorded in July of 2021. So yeah, he gets prosecuted for his success, for example, for the things that go around on social media being posted by the haters who do not even know the guy. It's insane that people judge somebody that they don't even know, because every time there's an article I see about Lewis, like on Facebook, there's always like an angry emoji or something that someone's posted. It's ridiculous. So it's like things that he's a hypocrite and they're just attacking him because of what he wears, and like historical links to his team and sponsors had in World War II. Historical being the key word there. It's in the past, it's not the present. Things have changed, and there's still all this hate because of a successful black man, and a black man that obviously they know nothing about, and it's all down to obviously jealousy. So we all have to, like I said, we all have to share this planet with humans and animals alike. There's not just humans, and more of us need to stand up against all that is wrong in the world. And this is what this channel is all about, and what I'm trying to do. But I can't do it on my own, okay? I need your help. We need to be able to lift each other's voices. We should be united, and we should do our part to help change. We all need to show unity, because until we do that, the world isn't going to get any better. For those who think that none of this affects them, think again, because it affects everybody. Words can really hurt somebody and do a lot of unseen damage. We don't always see people's thoughts and feelings, or no, neither do we know what that person does behind closed doors, or what they might have been through in the past, or even what they may still be going through. If it is not enough for us to say we did one thing to make a difference once, these things happen to people every single day. These issues never go away for these people, and they can not just forget about it. And why should they forget about all the horrible things that they have been through? And how many of us will still be fighting the injustice when it's no longer the thing to do? Like I mentioned, like the football I had mentioned before. Formula One is still far away from being equal. In fact, in 2020, the drivers all did a little video for them that I saw, and they were standing up against racism and fighting for equal opportunities. However, every single driver to date is or has been male, but like I said, they're taking baby steps into the right sort of direction. So that's literally all I have to say on the matter for today. There are going to be other videos that explore this topic and topics of helping animals, because this is what we're doing on this channel. The voice of one can be ignored, but the voice of many can't, okay? And we all need to help each other to raise our voices so everybody is heard, because you literally, like I said, you can't ignore the voice of all these many people because it's so loud you can't shut it out. It's like a matchstick. You got one matchstick, you can break it, but the more matchsticks you are holding in your hand, the harder it is to break. And that's what we need to do. We need to show this unity. That is all what this channel is all about. So if I have inspired you today and you want to make a change and you want to help me lift the voice of others that aren't being heard so their voices are heard, then please subscribe to this channel. That is so important if you want to help this fight and want to change the world in which we live in. When you subscribe, please click on the notification bell, and you will be notified every Wednesday and Saturday when I upload a video. Please share this video with your friends and your family. That is so important to be able to get that message out there. We need the more people that see this, the more people that we can help, and the more people that also help us lift the voices of those who are not being heard. For any other for the Formula One sort of content that I've been covering, then click on this playlist and I'll take you to all the Formula One videos that I have covered. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.